I believe the leaders of our future are going to be those who are great translators. They can take complex ideas, emotional reactions, rapid change, all of those things, and know how to lead people through it by understanding what it takes for people to perform at their best. They're going to have to listen to the people around them, understand how to communicate effectively, understand how each of those people around them receives information, what motivates them to do their best. They're going to know how to connect those dots between the needs of people and the business goals. But that kind of leader never stops learning. They have to be very self-aware and understand their own biases. They're going to have to stay flexible rather than trying to lead on autopilot and apply the same style to everybody. I think they also need to be very attuned to what people are feeling, what they're afraid of, what they need to feel secure, and then just continue reshaping their own approach as the workforce in the world changes. Because ultimately, the future of work, I don't think it's about replacing humans so much as it is about elevating humans.
I think good leaders have a passion for what they can do. They have the ability to communicate. They have the ability to create a vision. They're very transparent. I think they have to have great listening skills, and they have to be trusted. And trust is enormous. And when trust is not there on both sides of the ledger, whether it's the employee or the leader, then you just let a lot of things in that cost a lot of money to get out.
Do you find that leadership isn't really a top-down thing? It's really, there's people that can demonstrate acts of leadership and demonstrate their leadership regardless of title.
Oh, yeah. And I see that here, actually. I see it among our tellers or actually in any department. There are certain people that they just project.
Yeah.
And
they see the big picture. It's a certain level of almost like maturity or something that they have. Yeah.
And they're great. They're great at their job. They have no problem helping, jumping, but they're not in a leadership role, but they do have that trait. And it's great to have that because then you can have employees go to other employees for questions, help, concerns.
Exactly. Cross-training, things like that.
And we do huge cross-training because we are small. A lot of us have to wear multiple hats. And it's always good to be able to have somebody that you can go to that can train somebody, or they feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, I got a question. I know it's not your area, but do you know this?
Would you agree that people can lead regardless of title?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you see that in your organization? You see different people on different teams and you're like, that person's a leader. They might not even be leading that team, but we got to keep our eyes on that person. Like you kind of sense it, don't you?
You do sense it, but here's my philosophy is that, because I say this a lot at Ackland to people, is like you lead where you're at. So it doesn't matter if you're washing windows, lead, be the best, because that's what I did. And I answered phones. I took my job seriously. I answered those phones. I'm on time. I care about it, right? Because if I don't answer the phones, it in fact impacts somebody else. And even if I'm not getting the attaboys on my back, you still have to know that like it's a personal accountability, personal work ethic that you have about yourself. And so I think that people can lead in whatever position they're in. And that's what I tell people at Ackland.
What are some of the traits that you find that really demonstrate excellent leadership?
You can't have that my way or the highway kind of mentality. It's very easy to say, I am the expert in this and you need to do what I say. And that works in both kind of ways. You've got to, you got to be able to communicate what you need, articulate why you need it, and also just realize that not everybody's going to want to do things your way. If you can, find that good common ground, say, hey, I know you want this. I want this. Can we find a way that makes us both at least reasonably happy here? And there are lines like this is legal requirement. We cannot do this.
Right. We have to do
that gray area. A lot of that gray area. It's like, hey, or what can I do today to make us better than we were yesterday? And what can we do tomorrow to make it better than we were today?
And communication is really key there, right? Like when leaders explain the reasoning and the context for why this is the betterment, like we're all part of the team. This is better for the organization because of this. Then at least you understand the context. My frustration with leadership sometimes is when you get a directive and there's no context and you're like, I'll do it. Yeah, that's fine. I just don't understand why. Why? Yeah, as soon as they explain why, you're like, makes total sense. And then you're able to explain it to your teammates. And then, you know what I mean? And it really helps understand the context.
There was Another thing I think is important for a leader too is leading by example.
Yeah.
Versus telling people, I need you to do this, this, and this, but you're not doing it yourself. You lose credibility. So I feel like you have to kind of practice what you preach, so to speak, and be the example of what you would like your people to be like.
And I've also learned that a great leader can't just be a champion for their own team. And this is something that has really, really stood out to me over the years, is that I see leaders over different divisions of an organization, and they are champions for their teams, but they're often not champions for everybody else's team. And I was always perplexed by that, because every role of an organization strengthens the organization in some way. If not, we wouldn't have those roles. An organization wouldn't pay people, right, to do those things for the organization. So for me, a great leader is going to be one who champions every team across the organization just as strongly as they champion their own. Because at the end of the day, success is about how well everyone moves forward together. When an organization's under stress, whether it's uncertainty, whether the organization is going through change, and maybe it's just a constant pace of change, people don't need more noise. They need more certainty, more clarity, and they need steadiness. I think that's what it comes down to. They need someone who can help them translate that chaos into clarity and then slow things down just enough so that everyone can make sense of what's happening in the moment. And that includes for themselves, not just for everyone around them. You know, they don't have to be the first one to speak. They can listen, they can observe, and they can help bring focus to everything that truly matters. And so I really do. I think that translating people's needs and understanding how to bring steadiness to a situation will help turn that fear into direction.
I think there's a handful of characteristics that are typically found in, what I would consider good leaders. I think number one on that list, David, is integrity. I think, you need to have integrity that engenders trust. And if a team has trust among its members, it can be successful. Another characteristic is what I call, self-awareness or humility. I think you need to be willing to listen as a leader, and you need to be open to different ideas. Over time, as a banker, I had a number of clients whose CEOs did not exhibit this self-awareness or humility aspect that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And, typically those organizations were afraid to speak up, let the CEO know what they were thinking. And, quite frankly, those organizations typically were not very successful organizations.
Right.
Yeah, I think that comes through in how the leader acts. And what I characterize it as is the ability to be compassionate. And what I mean by that is, one, you're willing to listen. Two, you're willing to listen and therefore learn. But then most importantly is you follow up on what's been communicated to you. And I think and this goes back to my, integrity point, which is if you have integrity and you're listening and you're learning and you're following up, you're going to engender trust in the team. And, the team will then, do what you're asking them to do in those difficult situations where, it's not crystal clear what the right thing to do is.
I have been preaching for 12, 13 years now. Annual performance reviews are are a dinosaur. They need to go away. At a minimum, twice a year, ideally once a month or quarterly. Yeah. So it still amazes me the number of companies that are doing annual performance reviews. My daughter works for a company that does that. And her point is, I don't remember what happened 6 months ago, much less a year ago when I go to fill out all this information. Consequently, I've coached her to keep a monthly journal of what she has accomplished so that she can know when she's ready to do that performance review or self-review. So, and again, that's just one of my soapboxes. I'd love to get on.
That's really good.
This concept of annual surveys or whatever, I'm not a big fan personally. I think in this day and age, you need to be frequently checking in, not too frequently, because on any given day, any human can feel good or bad. But if you can start to get relatively frequent trends about how your employees are feeling, how they feel has a direct correlation to what they produce. And I think the most important thing in this whole equation is trust. I say transformation happens at the speed of trust. If you want to transform your company, if you want to grow your company, if you want to scale, if you're changing strategies, whatever, if they don't trust you, They won't follow you. They may not leave you. They may do something worse, which is just sit down.
95 to 99% of what we do is on automatic mode. Our brain needs it. It requires it. We have to build up these superneural highways in our brain so that we don't have to think about everything that we do. But that's the challenge for us. We're doing so much of it without conscious thought about the impact that we're having on other people as well as ourselves. And so it become it's called becoming aware of your awareness.
Right. Yeah.
And recognizing those patterns that may be working for you that you don't need to change, and those that may not be working, that you really need to do the deep dive to evaluate what's the change I want to make to become a more effective leader. Because it's not about being the greatest leader or a perfect leader. There's no such thing as perfection, but it's effectiveness. How can I, 1%, 2%, whatever that looks like, just becoming more effective, but becoming much more aware.
Pressure does not build character. If anything, it helps reveal character. Because every decision, every word you say, even the tone you're using when you're speaking sends a message. And people actually read you long before they listen to you. I can remember moments when stakes were very high, and I recognized that panic did not make the situation any safer. But what did was people who had composure, people who helped to provide clarity.
One of the things I say a lot is clarity is kindness. And when you're clear, the clearer you are, the kinder you're being. And that goes for sort of any sort of dimension. So if you're talking about somebody is not performing in your culture, if you're not letting them know, you're actually not being highly empathetic and you're not being kind. How you deliver it is important, but I do think that empathy is seeking to understand, being really clear about what it means to be in your company, and then making it okay if people don't want to do those things. If they don't want to be that person, if they don't want to show up that way.
Well, so I've been leading teams for almost 30 years. Common denominators for success really come back to good communication skills. So when you have the ability to articulate a problem, lean into discussing that issue, the ability to provide clarity to your team, communication is just critical. So I think that for sure bubbles to the top. But I think people that have high emotional intelligence also have great success, because if you're going to motivate a team, if you're going to hold a team accountable, if you're going to praise and award a team, you have to be emotionally connected. You have to be sensitive. You have to be empathetic. You have to be sensitive. And I think you hear a lot about that now. We didn't hear so much about that, 15, 20, 30 years ago. But I think when I look at my team, the ones that are the most emotionally intelligent do the best.
I think as a leader, you have to make sure you remember that the other individuals in the room have a thought process that they're going through, and they might not align with what you're looking for. My goal is every time is to sit in is I just want to listen. And it's the art of listening. And I respect the individual from what they're taking, their approach. But more importantly is that even if their true pathway doesn't align with my vision, I want to make sure that we walk through and talk the steps of how in a corrective manner and or collaborative manner. So when I get my groups and sitting down and we're talking out loud, I want them to actually feel that they can add to the conversation. And so I work the room. I make sure I listen and watch. And first impressions is everything with me. And give me 15 seconds. I'm going to decide where the conversations is going to go and things. And so I just make sure that everyone feels that they can add something to the conversation.
I espouse accountability, integrity, be dignified, be graceful. If your mouth is moving, there's a huge opportunity for you to say something stupid. So just listen. And when the appropriate time is there, then you bring in the act of elegance and grace into the communication, into the conversation.
But what are some of the key blind spots that you're seeing leaders struggle with?
I mentioned it earlier. The number one is the communications. Are you clear? Are you concise? Do you have a vision for where you're going? Are you communicating in a way that inspires people? That's the number one. The second is not understanding that they've got a default leadership style that may or may not be working. Ken Blanchard did a study a few years ago that said that 52% of us use one style of leadership all the time.
All the time. Interesting.
All the time. Now, Does that one style work all the time? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not.
I think the way I've always led and definitely led, even in the good times or the bad times, is communication and patience. You communicate with everybody. You let everybody know that, hey, times are tough. And even when times are good, you want to communicate that, yes, the company is doing good. It's really having everybody on the same page. And I think if employees truly feel like that they're partners and have skin in the game, per se, I think they feel more appreciated. Then they realize they're part of this team. They're part of this company. So communicating as much as you can and really having everybody buy in. So one, there's not a lot of surprises. They know what's going on in there. Communication is key, but also being patient. I think being patient and kind of letting everything play out on a business, knowing that it is going to get better sooner or later. I think those are the two biggest keys to my leadership: is communicating and just being patient and let things kind of play out.
I think a lot of companies, in many ways, only look towards the policy level. It's like they'll have a written document stating what the culture is or what such and such policy is. And that's all it is. It's a piece of paper. The culture of a company is embodied in the people each and every day. If you, like whatever company you're in, it has a culture. And I think you have to first understand what that culture is. It could be fragmented and, toxic or unhealthy, but that's what it is. So the first thing I really advise people to do is identify what you want that culture to be, and then do the hard work, that change management process of telling everybody, this is like, I want to go here. I want us all to move towards this place. And if you're trying to institute this later, after you've built the business and you want to try and change the culture, I think you're going to have to realize you've probably hired people that don't want that culture. So it's a lot of tough business decisions to really foster a true culture. You need to make sure that you're not allowing bad behavior, right? So you need to address poor behavior or behavior that doesn't align to your culture. And you need to reward behavior that does align to it. So that's, if you want people to share their opinion, you have to solicit that and make it safe for them to give you that information. Then you have to act on it.
Absolutely. I think that is fantastic advice, because there's a lot of organizations that keep some toxic people on because they're a good producer or they're this or that, not realizing or not tracking the right metrics that are aligned with their culture.
So one of the things that I think we did well is with that large of a team that's that spread out, we really wanted everybody to feel like they were a key part of our success. So it was really critical that whether you're answering the telephone or whether you're making the pizza or whether you're delivering, you're the person at the door, or maybe you're in the back office doing payroll, or maybe you're the person cleaning the restrooms. We wanted every single person to really feel like they were a part of our work family, that they were a connection to our collective success. And I think we did a good job at that, because in the fast food industry, you normally see a lot of turnover. Not a lot of longevity.
Right.
We had people that were with us for 15 years, 20 years.
Wow. See,
which is just
really
unheard of.
That's a testament to the culture. Yeah, that's a testament to the personal development, professional development that you provide for them, and then just the culture overall. That's really good.
And I love the question you asked about cultures. How do you maintain this culture in a distributed environment?
How do you have team meetings with your team members that are over in Australia? I do, podcasting all over the world. And like whenever I've got to have somebody on from Germany or the UK or Australia, it's always like at 4:00 in the morning, my time or something like that. I'm drinking tons of coffee. Like, how do you manage that?
Well, there are times where we do have off-time meetings like that to connect with our teammates around the world in different time zones. But for the most part, the trickiest part about culture is how do we stay connected to our team every day, right? Like when we're in an office environment, so we've built a daily wins channel where anybody who had a success, either with a student, with a teammate, even in their personal life, you could just go in and post a win. And that has been an amazing channel because we all get to celebrate in that success. And then the second piece, and this is fascinating, is gratitude, is being able to be thankful for things that happen in our day. And, it's obvious from the management perspective on why leadership would participate in it and recognize our respective teams. But more importantly, what I found is the teams have taken it upon themselves to use a gratitude channel to thank each other. That has fostered more culture and connection in our 100% remote business than anything we've ever done. We still do regular team Zoom meetings and update people on the happenings with the business. But I'll tell you, the wins in the gratitude channel, where our team get to drive the information and the messaging, has been an overwhelming success for us and the culture of our business.
So in manufacturing and in the manufacturing environment, how do you build a culture that kind of keeps people engaged, not just employed? Like, how do you get people, how do you inspire people or keep people engaged that you found in your experience?
And my biggest strength is listening and very transparent communication. And when I say listening, that doesn't mean that every suggestion you say, yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we're going to do it. No, you listen. Like, for instance, I walk through the shop a couple times a day, talk to employees. Hey, how's it going? I don't know it all. I make mistakes. Right. The only perfect person ever to live, we hung him on a cross. Communication and listening is what, and bonding with people as people. When I walked through the shop, it was great. People in the mailroom, like, hey, say, they're yelling out to me. It's like, you're walking through it, and it's a great feeling because I'm no better than them, and they're no better than me. We're all equals. I mean, they know I have the final say, but I don't lord it over them. I can relate to people as people.
And I think that one of the things I'm talking to CEOs and leadership teams a lot about right now is how frequently do you re-recruit? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, in this day and age, so humans want to feel safe, and humans want to be in a place where they're wanted. And if you know who your best and brightest are, and you're not pretty constantly re-recruiting them, someone else is going to understand that those are your best and brightest. And by the way, it's not just about your best and brightest. You need a bunch of those folks to make your machine run. So this concept of re-recruiting people, checking in with them, understanding how they're feeling about their trajectory at your company, about what they're learning, about how they're being paid. It's not a common thing that I think leaders do, and it's something that I think is so important. If you're not re-recruiting your employees every 3 to 6 months, especially if you're in tech, somebody else may be recruiting them.
The people that you are responsible for, they have to know that you are willing to not just sit high and look down low, but you're willing to get up and help them with whatever that looks like. I have served in the kitchen. I've mopped floors. I've taken out trash. I've done all these different things. And I think that when people can see you move like that, just jump in like that, they're very much willing to do the same. And what's great about it is you don't even have to ask. You don't even have to ask people to do these things. They see that it needs done. They do it.
Listen, you are who you help. Okay. Yeah. And the more people that you bring up, your life gets brought up.
When I walk into an opportunity, I think about other organizations too. I'm not looking for what I can get out of it for myself. Mm-hmm. When you've been invited into a space, if you're a true leader, you're not invited into that space just to elevate yourself. You're invited into that space to elevate the people around you.
To me, being a leader is not as much leading people, but bringing people up. And so again, like if you can bring the people around you up, then that's just going to make you stronger. That's going to make your team stronger. That's going to make your company stronger. So to me, leadership is about adding value to the people around you.
Absolutely.
You said that the customer is the boss. Yes. Yeah. Talk about that, because many leaders don't look at it like that. They're the boss, and the customer is not necessarily viewed as the most important or one of the most. So please share your thoughts in regards to that.
Well, anybody that doesn't do that, the customer's boss and is most important, doesn't know anything about business. And that might sound mean, because without a customer, you have no income and you have no reason to have employees. And so when you look at how we go about this, the customer's boss, that doesn't mean he's always right, okay? It doesn't mean that we don't have issues with our boss, because everybody has issues with their bosses at times, right? Mm-hmm. And so what we say in the top of the sphere, if we take care of our boss, the customer, all right, we're going to get a paycheck, okay? And how well we take care of them a lot of times dictates how well and large our paycheck is. And then secondly in our hierarchy are the employees, okay? If you don't have a customer, you don't have an employee. Makes no sense, okay? Yes. And so next is the employee. So it's our job as a leader to make sure we take care of our employees, because the employees are the people that take care of our boss, the customer. And so it's our job to take obstacles out of their way. It's our job to listen to them.
We have to always remember that when we first started, we fell down, we bumped our head, we may have bumped somebody else's head. We have our war wounds that made us who we are as leaders, and we're all the better for it. You do not come through this life and through any profession without having some bumps and bruises. We do make mistakes. We do make errors. The idea is whoever wrote that book, failing up, because that's what we do. We strive to do. Whenever you get a new position, we've got a couple of new leaders now, and I have those one-on-ones with them. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I said, it's all right. It's okay. Yeah. You're learning. This is what this time is for. It's okay. And especially with new leaders, I very, very vocally say, you have permission to fail.
That's
and I'm
really
telling
important.
you right now, you're going to fail, and it's going to be okay. We're going to dust you off. We're going to help you get back up, and we're going to learn from it. And once you can build that trust, then when people do make an error that maybe it's not a small one, they trust that they can come to you and get your help to resolution, because that's what you want.
You know, you've mentioned a couple of things that are interesting, and that is that those who you see have leadership potential, and yet they still have those inner thoughts where they're doubting themselves. And so, how do you address that?
Yeah, reassuring them, but also explaining to them that I have weaknesses too, and so like one of my weaknesses that I explained to them is that I have. If anybody follows EQ, you know, one of the characteristics is impulse control. I have an issue with impulse control. When I get an idea, I'm ready to run with it.
Yeah.
And so I have encouraged my team, hey, when you see me running with something and it's a bigger decision, I need you to stop and say, hey, Derek, have we thought this all the way through? Have you thought about this? And I want you to slow me down. I don't need to be surrounded by a bunch of yes people.
Exactly.
And so by showing them that I have faults too and weaknesses, and then encouraging them at the same time that they can do these things that they think they can't, I think that both of those approaches show humility and then encourage them to overcome their self-doubt.
So how I started down, you know, one of my first really big corporate jobs was processing healthcare claims for a company, and they used a mainframe. And I came into that job never using a mainframe before, and I just learned as much as I could. And so I found problems. So I learned all I could. I tuned applications, and I started showing my boss, if I tune an application, it'll run twice as fast. I found a way, like I found a solution to a problem I identified. And that led me to being asked to participate in other problem areas. So my mode of operation for the next probably 10 years was to ask for the hard problems. I would go into a company and say, what's something that's frustrating us? What's something that's, you know, off track? Is there a project people are running away from? Is there a tough problem nobody can figure out? Like, put me on that problem. Let me spend my time.
Interesting.
I'll do it extra. So I was able to make connections. I was able to work on really hard problems, and I was able to prove time after time that if you just work hard work pays off.
My productivity tip is to delegate and elevate. Like, I don't really do anything that is not my job. I tell people I got one role in my company. I talk to people, and if I'm not talking to people, we're losing money. I delegate everything else. If you're an owner of a business or a leader, do not do $20 an hour work. Delegate and elevate, and then do what you do so well that you're undeniable, and people pay you a premium for it, and you can pay for anything you want to do.
In terms of leadership, like, how do you lead teams when you're doing things that have such a big impact? How do you lead teams to make sure you are hiring the right teams and you're training them in your methodologies?
Well, my personal approach has always been that you identify the right kinds of people for the job and you just try to give them the support that they need to do their job. I'm not in general one of those people who likes to micromanage them and try to tell them every little bit about how they do their job. Because if you hire the right people, they know their job, they know how to do it, and they just need to be provided the resources in order to reach whatever that goal is. So I tend to be more hands-off than micromanaging people. And, when you have a very skilled group of employees like we have chemical engineers, we have regulatory people, we have a variety of different PhDs, from bioengineering PhDs to molecular biology PhDs. They've all gone through a significant amount of training in their career. And as long as you have the right fit and the right culture, those people will excel if you just give them the right kinds of resources. You don't have to be nitpicking on every little thing that they do.
So I think the thread I've learned through my career is, like, not everything's going to be pretty and pristine. And probably your best breakthroughs in innovation are dealing with things that are complex, hairy, potentially bigger than what you can consume. But in leadership, your role is to break it down into bite-sizable chunks, to simplify it so people understand the root cause of what you're trying to solve, and then put practical, pragmatic actions in place that allow yourself to see a plan of action that will deliver a result. And I think sometimes leadership is like, I'm going to go out and lead, but part of times leading is leading in the ranks, in it with them, to understand what they're experiencing and what is not working, so that you have a better sense from their dimension of what needs to get fixed. I'm naturally attracted to people who are like curious, right? Like, because the day I stop learning is the day I probably I'm not going to be on this earth any longer, because I'm just really encouraged about learning new things. And it just makes me just like hunger to learn more. And so whenever I'm looking at folks, I look at will and skill. Okay. So if I got someone who like has the will, really wants to do it, but has some gaps in the skill set, but shows me like learning, agility and the ability and curiosity, I will take that.
Trained then. Yeah, because that can be trained 100%.
That can be trained. I'll take that over anyone who's got a lot of skill but no will, because it's hard to teach will. And if you're not, you're not into it, or you don't want to do the work, but you've got the capacity, I'll much more take the person who has the potential than the person who has actually the skills but doesn't have the desire to kind of work hard or put themselves out there and lean into the work. And I've always looked at things that way. And that's kind of how I look at myself. Like, when you have the will, you're gonna find a way to learn it.
Well, in the book, there's a chapter titled "How Much Should a Leader Care?" And I believe it's 100%. I don't subscribe to the belief that you can't be friends with the people. Yes, you need to be careful. There may have to be some big, hard decisions made at certain times.
Some guardrails.
Yeah, but if you understand the concept of psychological safety, your number one job as a leader is to turn off the negative bias of the brains of the people that you are leading. And that comes from caring and connecting. And in fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Posner and Kouzes in their book, The Leadership Challenge. I think they're on the 6th or 7th edition of it. They've been researching leadership for years, 30 plus years. And they say the number one attribute that drives great leadership is relationships. And in fact, when I do workshops or speeches, I'll ask, one word, define leadership for me. And I get all kinds of words. Virtually no one ever comes up with the word relationship. So it starts foundationally with me connecting in a way where you know that I fundamentally care about you as a human, not because you can produce widgets for me. Right? Once I've established that connection, I've earned the right to challenge you to be a better version of yourself, or to, increase your effectiveness. When I had people that I led, and now that I coach people and work with teams and whatnot, I look for the character of the person. Do they have the character that we're looking for? Do they have the commitment to do the job? Do they have the capability to do the job? And do they have the capacity? So those 4 C's.
And then most importantly, David, I think it's, show gratitude. When, a team member goes above and beyond the call of duty and is doing what you're asking them to do to meet the objectives that you've communicated, say thank you. And you know what?
Acknowledge them, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Acknowledge them and say it as often as possible. It has amazed me over my career how little you actually hear thank you in a professional environment. You just don't hear it that often.
It's
and
true.
it's so easy to
Costs
do.
you nothing.
Costs you nothing.
Right.
The return on investment is exponential.
Yes.
And it's just such a simple thing.
So how in leadership does one do that, keeping things positive while still getting stuff done? Like, it's great to be super nice and then they miss deadlines and everything else. Well, that's no good, right? And then you don't want to be dictatorial and hard, because then good people will leave and it's not a good culture and you don't want to work in that anyway. So how are you doing that?
I think that's a step-by-step process. It's meeting people where they're at. It's providing clear communication on expectations, often documenting those expectations, and then being consistent in how you either reward or, I guess, hold accountable. So, I compliment and praise my team often. Yeah. So that way, when I do have an issue with something, I can go to them and tell them the issue.
They know it's not threatening. They know it's not threatening. They know that you believe in them. There's just this one thing, error, or one thing that needs
one area, and I present that in a very forward-thinking manner. There's a book called QBQ that talks about just the language that we use and how we convey the message, and using, instead of going to people and say why or how, you say like, well, when we do this next time, this is what I'd like to see, and not, hey, why didn't this get done?
Right.
People get immediately defensive. I empower my people as well. And I'm quick to admit when I make a mistake.
Yeah, that's really important in leadership, right?
So,
I think that makes leaders human.
I have an issue with spelling. I'm a horrible speller. And so I do PowerPoints a lot, and people laugh and we make a joke about my spelling. So, I try to show humility and hopes that is contagious. And so then people aren't as afraid to make mistakes themselves.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and actually the fact that you can make light of it, or your team can make light of it, is a good culture example, right?
Absolutely.
You've built a career on relationships, not just outside of your organization, but also inside your organization. What have those connections taught you about the human side of business?
I think, to me, reputation's everything. Whether it's your personal brand or the company, that you're representing, at an event, is everything. Like, to me, it's 95% of the success of my company through the years has been either my own reputation or the reputation of, the employees that have worked with me. They make such a big difference in the world and in our business. So, that's where kind of networking and getting out and, not only representing, if I go to a networking event, yes, I'm representing St. Louis, but I'm also representing myself. So a lot of people just start networking when they lose their job, and if you only know the people in the cubicles around you, or the people that you FaceTime every day, or, when you do lose that job, it's going to be tough to find that next job. Yeah. You really want to have a great, base of people that you truly know. And how you get to know people is by going to networking events, going to conferences. And it doesn't have to be industry specific. Mm-hmm. You can go to church events. You can go to Chamber of Commerce's. You can, go to a gala that doesn't have anything to do with the industry you're in, but you really want to grow that, personal relationships with people. Just through that journey of the last 20 years of networking, I've met the most unbelievable people, just true great friends, and people I can call, whether they're competitors or anything, never matters. Like lifelong true friends that I couldn't imagine not having them in my life. Mm-hmm. But you got to make an effort to go do that. Like, you actually have to go to events and you have to get out. You can't just rely on relationships to form through texts and emails. You have to be able to go out and actually have a cup of coffee and expand your own brand and expand that to do it, because you don't know when the company you own or you're working for might close, or, you might get laid off. You want to make sure you know as many people as you can so you can ask people for help, And it's great. I love that I can talk to friends that are in Australia and in Hong Kong, and we can stay tight because you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it's still so important, that human connection of actually sitting down and just learning about somebody and hearing about their family and hearing about their problems. And you might never get business, you might get zero business out of that relationship, but that's okay.
That's okay.
You have that relationship. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. But to me, I think if your focus is just sales, or just getting that vendor, or just doing your job, you're missing out on just incredible friendships and stories and good times. And, why kind of we do all this stuff is, everybody wants a paycheck and everybody wants to work for a good company. But at the end of the day, meeting great people and, having good stories to tell, to me, that's everything.
The appetite for technology isn't going away. I think the scrutiny around how it's used is going to continue to get a little bit tougher. So customers are going to want some ROI on what they're purchasing, and making sure that, the purchases they're making are not just because it's the next greatest thing, but it's really necessary and it's really going to help their business goals. I think the blending of a technologist and a business role is going to be something that's going to continue in the years ahead. It's going to be really important for both sides of the house to have some familiarity with the language and of the other side. So if you are a salesperson or a marketing person or a business owner within a channel company or even an end company, you need to have some understanding of technology, and vice versa. The technicians and technology people within your organization have to be able to understand the business side of the house.
But if you do not embrace the technology that's coming, I think you will be left behind. So as a leader, or even as, an employee of the company, embracing technology, you don't have to get ahead of it because it's moving so fast, but you can't have the mentality of, we've always done it this way. Like that will, really hurt you, I think, as quickly as the next year or two. Like this isn't even a 10 years from now conversation. Most of this technology's already actually been around 10, 15 years. It's just now companies on our side of the supply chain are finally realizing we have to have this. Our customers are demanding it, but it's also making the industry better. So to be, to not, as a leader, to not embrace it and to implement in your company will be, I think you'll look back in 2-3 years and say, what happened?
Small businesses generally believe in a myth, and the myth is that they're too small to be targeted. And most lack adequate defenses, making them easy targets, or they become collateral damage in larger attack campaigns that are launched through these ransomware as a service and malware as a service platforms. And they have all those vulnerabilities found right there on the dark web. To keep customers' trust and to maintain a competitive edge, leaders really need to know, first, is your data on the dark? And not only now, is it in the future being discussed? Meaning, are they talking about hitting your sector? Are they talking about hitting your type of business in your type of state? Because right there on the dark web, they're talking about that. And monitoring that and checking that allows you to understand the modus operandi so that you can defend yourself.
I would say for SMBs themselves thinking about what they want to do in the future, the biggest question is, what do they want that mix of technology talent to look like? A lot of them right now might not have their own IT department or IT specialist. And I think they need to think about making that investment. And they need to think about, why would we have somebody internal that knows the DNA of the company that can drive some of our technology strategy? And then when we start looking externally, how do we go beyond just a single source that's providing most of our technology needs to think about things on a more granular level? And maybe that single source is still the first point of contact into a broader ecosystem of people that they would partner with, or maybe the SMB themselves, looks out and starts partnering with multiple different firms for different types of things. I think there has been a fairly simplistic view from a lot of SMBs in the past. And depending on how aggressive they want to be with their technology adoption, I think thinking about this mix of skills, both internal and external, is going to be really critical for those that want to grow more aggressively.
An incident response plan is like a mental health policy, right?
It really is.
Because we don't have people running around crazy, scared and confused. We know if we have an incident response plan, we don't have to think about our next action in the crisis. We've planned before the crisis, so we can be much more relaxed and calm and know what to do and know who to talk to and know what to say and what not to say.
A lot of business leaders don't understand that when an attack like ransomware happens, it is very emotional.
Yes.
It is. There are people that have passed out. They've had heart attacks. They see their kids not go to college now. They see their homes foreclosed. Like, they see all that because everything that they've been using is gone. Like, their icons on their desktop don't work. It's all white. There's a text file and it says, talk to us on this talks channel. And you're like, what? You're like, what is that? You're like, and now you have to go and negotiate with a foreign ransomware gang that is very good at their job.
And from my experience, this is where we have to be careful, because with cybersecurity, silence can be the biggest threat, not just that click itself. And employees have to trust the organization enough to raise their hand in that moment and say, I just clicked on something I don't think I should have. And they need to be able to do that without the fear of losing their job for reporting it. I don't think people generally fail those tests just because they're careless. I think that they fail because they're human, and humans are going to make mistakes. But if an employee is embarrassed or afraid of being punished or being judged, they may choose not to report it at all. And that is when I think the risk becomes even bigger for the organization. So again, from like an HR perspective, I think the goal is wanting employees to come forward when they click on something, but they have to trust you enough to do that.
You got to find a place where you thrive, and that's where you're going to do the most good. So, and that's what I did. I was lucky that a friend of mine heard I'd quit my job. He wanted to start a marketing agency, and that's what we did. My very first business with my partner at the time was our boutique marketing agency, started as Kitchen Table. It was full on guerrilla. You know what? We were both professionals before entrepreneurs, so we had a pretty good network. And what we found was the best place to start your business is kind of doing the job you were already doing. So I was in sales and marketing in a particular industry. So all I did was really transition careers, leverage all of the contacts I already had, and said, hey, I've made a career change. Is this something that either you or your company needs, or do you know of somebody who needs to do these things? So we just went out and got a lot of different contracts doing what we were probably going to be doing as employees anyway. So we actually took our full-time jobs and converted those. Going back to, if you find the thing that you will thrive about, it lights you up in ways nothing else can. And at that stage, even though it's stressful and it's hectic and there's anxiety attached to it, I wouldn't trade that type of feeling for the dullness and the anxiety I get from doing something I wouldn't be enjoying doing.
Tell us about your segue from sales and focusing on really learning the model, the industry, into executive leadership. Like, how did that happen?
It happened intentionally. I didn't always have a goal, like I want to run a company, but I had a goal that I wanted to be, and this is going to sound egotistical, but it's not. It's just the term I use. I always wanted to be the smartest person in the room. I always wanted to learn. Like I said, when I was in sales, I wanted to learn how a product was made. When I was as a director of sales, I wanted to learn tool and die. I was in metal stamping. I wanted to learn the accounting side. When there was an audit, I wanted to sit in on the accounting audits just to learn. And I think, David, it was just the willingness to learn and the desire to learn and be better got me to a point where sometime in the mid-90s, I was like, well, I'm learning. I know a little bit about this whole business. Maybe I could run a business. It was kind of the gathering of knowledge first, and then building the foundation of knowledge of a company and an industry and a market, and then saying, I could do this. I could run it. I could run the whole show.
So you put yourself through school. You got your MBA too, didn't you?
I did.
Wow.
While I was
Okay.
So it's an interesting story because I had to kind of stumble my way to college graduation, given the fact that I had, 2 kids that I was trying to juggle at the time. I honestly didn't graduate college until I was 30 years old.
Yeah, but there's nothing. That's great. I think that's great.
If you look at my graduation picture, there was so much joy on my face. But immediately after I walked across that stage, I was like, I got to go get my MBA. So I graduated at 30 years old. I had been to college before, had a scholarship playing softball, and got pregnant. So, but like, those things, like every little thing, every little win that I was able to achieve, just let me know that I could achieve it. And so if I could go and get a scholarship in college playing softball because I was good at softball, then I was like, okay, then I could do anything. And so like, I got pregnant. I had to step out of that. I was trying to find a job. I think I got to Nashville here in like when I was about 22 or 23 years old. So I found a little job. I'm telling you, I've been at the very bottom. I was just answering phones. That's all I was doing. And then I worked my way up through that organization as well. So yeah, it's got my MBA at the same time that I found my first career job. They were very supportive of me going to school. At the time, my CEO came to my graduation.
Wow, that's great.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
That is a really remarkable thing.
Yeah.
Actually.
And so I then right after that, I started my MBA while I was on the road. I had gotten promoted recently into a VP of business development at the time and just was on the road. But, I'd stop, I'd be at a conference or something like that. And I would, do my job there, go back into my room, do my lessons or take my tests or write my papers, be up till 2:00 in the morning, do it all over again. So like, I just had a lot of desire to get my education so that no one could tell me that I didn't have enough education. I used to get turned down for jobs because they tell me didn't have enough education. So I never got a foot in the door.
I'll tell you this, for a lot of the younger entrepreneurs or the people who've recently started businesses that may be listening, I questioned the long-term viability of GPRS on a daily basis for the first 5 years of its existence. I was not sure if it would ever get off the ground, but it was that consistency and that deliberate effort that this cannot fail. There's only one path forward here, and that's to make this work. And ultimately led to its growth. And then the other thing, surrounding yourself with people that elevate your thinking, that elevate your performance, that elevate your accountability. And that's really some of the magic that's happened within our company over the past 2+ decades.
Did you have a mentor? Were there any strong leaders that you kind of wanted to emulate? Anything like that?
I don't think there's a single person, but I feel like everybody that I've worked for over the years has taught me something. So
sure.
Some leaders are great, some are not so great, but either way, you still come away learning something from that experience.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like everybody really has something you can learn from, or teach you.
Yeah, 100%. Right. They may not be the best employer at the moment, right? Or the best manager for you or the way they might treat people. But in general, they're doing something well and there's something to learn from.
Yeah, there's something to learn from. And then there's things you can learn about yourself in those situations too.